First of all, breathe. I'm here, listening to you.
How many times have you smiled with your chest bleeding inside? Sometimes all we needed was silence and care. But what came was a cross phrase said as a joke, advice, or necessary truth. And you? He swallowed hard, smiled with his eyes downcast, and changed but that phrase stuck. She came back in the bath, on the pillow, in the lost gaze in the middle of the day. It was quiet on the outside, but noisy on the inside, because there are wounds that don't scream, they just echo. There are pains that no one sees, but you feel them every day. And the cruelest thing is that maybe whoever said it doesn't even remember, but you remember. Remember the tone, remember the feeling, remember the urge to run away or disappear for just a... Not all pain comes from screaming. Some comes from those who should care. And when that happens, the heart slowly closes, as if to say, I won't tell anymore, but listen to me. Breathe easy now, because this pain that no one validated still lives there, and it deserves to be looked at with a... Stay here a little longer. You remember the moment, don't you? The person's face, the tone of their voice, the way they said it, as if it were simple, as if it hadn't gone right through you. At that moment, your body froze inside, but no one saw. You tried to hide it with a quick smile, looked away, maybe even made a joke back, as if you didn't feel anything, but he felt it. It hit you hard, like a cold wind blowing in without asking permission. And the worst part wasn't the silence, not the silence outside, but what started to make noise inside. That nagging question you can't seem to keep quiet about. Did I deserve to hear that? And then you try to rationalize it away. Oh, maybe it was just a joke. I'm overreacting, or I'd better leave it alone. But it doesn't, because there are phrases that stick. There are words that, even when released into the air, stick to our skin. And no matter how long the days go by, they come back. When you lie down, when you look in the mirror, when you try to explain why you're quieter than usual. No one saw the way you broke down inside. No one noticed the effort it took to continue the conversation as if nothing had happened. They would call you too sensitive, dramatic, emotional. So you went silent. But this silence is not light. It's the kind that weighs, that tightens the chest without apparent explanation, the kind that no one sees but that consumes. And sometimes you even try to forget. But all it takes is a similar gesture, a similar phrase, a misinterpreted look, and that's it. Everything comes back. The same pain, the same discomfort, the same feeling of inadequacy, as if you couldn't trust anyone, or as if it were wrong to be hurt by something so small. But let me tell you something. This is not small. Not for those who feel, not for those who lived through it alone. Not for those who kept in their hearts what should have been welcomed. And even though the world moved on, you stood there, frozen in that moment, trying to understand why that sentence hurt so much, trying to convince yourself it was nothing. But feeling that was all. And maybe until now, no one has asked you how that made you feel. But I ask now, how is that part of you that learned to pretend it doesn't hurt? If this touched a corner of your heart that no one usually reaches, he is nearby. There's a lot more honest talk waiting for you here, like this video, not just for engagement, but to show that this kind of truth needs to circulate. Subscribe to the channel. That voice is still here, and come back whenever your chest feels heavy. I'll wait for you. And I know, maybe you've tried to move on. Maybe you told someone and heard, oh, come on, it's just a joke. Or worse, he didn't even tell her for fear of hearing exactly that, because sometimes what hurts the most is not just what was said, but the feeling that no one would take you seriously to explain it. But look here at me. It wasn't just a joke. It wasn't just a thrown-out phrase. You felt it, and that's enough. This pain is legitimate, even if no one else noticed, even if the world thinks it's small. A bruise doesn't need to bleed to be real, and what was left inside was left because it was too deep to be ignored. That's no exaggeration. It's not drama. It's just the echo of something that touched a part of you that was already too sensitive, maybe an old memory, maybe an insecurity maybe just the exhaustion of always having to endure everything in silence. And when someone says something that hits that spot, it seems small on the outside, but inside you, everything turns upside down. And I know you blame yourself. If you ask yourself, am I being weak for it affecting me so much? But let me tell you something that perhaps no one has said clearly before. Feeling is not weakness, it's courage. It's a sign that there's still something alive inside, that there's still sensitivity, humanity, truth. You're not wrong to expect more care. You're not wrong for wanting the words that reach you to come with lightness, not with iron. And you have every right to keep what hurt you, to respect your own limits. You have the right to say it hurt, even if no one understands. How many times have you tried to be the mature one, the strong one, the one who understands the other side? How many times have you swallowed your discomfort, silenced your annoyance, disguised your shock, just to avoid causing a fuss? But what was left in you afterwards? Nobody asks that part. No one sees the effort it takes to keep a calm face when the soul is exhausted. No one notices that behind the polite silence, there is a muffled cry asking to be taken seriously. Have you ever noticed how other people's words sometimes become your own inner voice? How does that phrase that diminished you on the outside start to haunt you here on the inside? This is how we lose our own voice. Go on believing that it's not that important. He keeps pruning himself, shrinking, trying to be easy to deal with. But you didn't come into this world to be ignored. There is such a beautiful strength to you, even when you feel fragile. There is a world within your silence that cries out for respect, and you deserve to be treated with care, even in quick conversations, even in thrown words, because yes, we are made of small details, and sometimes all it takes is one comment to spark an entire insecurity. And that doesn't make you too much, makes you real. And if no one has validated you, so I validate. This pain has a name. There is space, and it deserves to be welcomed. Stay here with me. There's still something your heart needs to hear. Maybe now, at this very moment, you are remembering that phrase that hurt, the person who said it, the place where you were, the way it went through you without asking permission. And inside, everything moves again. Not because you want to feed the pain, but because it has never really been heard. She was just pushed into a corner, to that place inside you where the invisible wounds are, those that no one sees but that remain there, throbbing softly. And I ask you with affection, why do you keep silent about what hurts? What is the fear behind this silence? Is it the fear of appearing weak, of losing someone if you say what you feel? Or could it be that deep down you learned that your feelings were always too much for others? But let me tell you something that might free you a little. You don't have to pretend everything is okay, just to keep the peace. Because this peace that your silence costs is not peace, it's prison. And you weren't born to live trapped inside yourself. Does this wound still not want to be seen? Isn't she asking you for care, attention, a minimum of truth? There is a type of pain that we hold on to for so long that it begins to become confused with who we are. You start to think that constant discomfort, that insecurity, that self-questioning are part of you. But they are layers of accumulated pain. These are phrases you've heard so many times that they've come to seem like absolute truths. They are marks of contempt disguised as sincerity. And you don't have to carry it anymore. Your silence doesn't have to continue to be a shield. You have the right to look at yourself more kindly, to ask your heart what it still keeps hidden, and to validate the answer, no matter how confusing or painful it may be. There is no shame in feeling. It's not weakness to admit that something hurt you. It's emotional maturity. It's courage. Maybe you've spent so much time trying to be strong that you've forgotten what it's like to allow yourself to break. A little bit, just to regroup inside. And that's okay. Coming to oneself is not a fall, it is a return, volte presse, for your inner shelter, for your truth, even if it is uncomfortable at first. And if you can't put into words everything you feel, just write a sentence here in the comments. No need to explain everything, only share what resonated with you. Maybe someone will read it and say, I feel that way too. And then, without meaning to, you become a welcome for another silence. There's space for your story here, even if it started with a wound, even if no one has listened to you before. So, tell me, which part of all this touched you the deepest? You're still there, reading, feeling, breathing all of this slowly. And that in itself is already very beautiful, because it's not easy to stay when the subject touches right where it hurts. It's not easy to look inside and recognize wounds that we learn to hide even from ourselves. Just by being here, already started a move. Small perhaps, silent certainly, but real. And that matters. It matters as much as any visible gesture, because yes, you don't have to carry it alone. Even though no one apologized, even if no one recognized what hurt you, even if it seemed like an exaggeration in the eyes of the person who hurt him, still, you deserve a break. There is still time to welcome yourself, to rebuild what was dismantled little by little in cutting conversations, in acidic jokes, in silences that invalidated your feelings. I know it doesn't always seem possible. Sometimes it feels like that weight has become a part of you, as if you had gotten used to him, like someone who has been carrying a backpack for so long that they forget what it's like to walk lightly. But what if you could put that backpack down for a moment, just to breathe, just to remind you that you weren't born to live in a state of constant tension? What if, little by little, you could take every word that hurt you out of her? Look at each one with affection, saying, I recognize you, but you no longer define me. Because it doesn't define. The pain may have left marks, but it doesn't take your essence. You are still whole. Even if you felt broken, even though he kept quiet for years, even though I've doubted you more times than I'd like to admit, you can still rebuild yourself without rushing, no charges, without needing to prove anything to anyone. Your silence deserves a hug, not contempt. He is not a weakness, nor a defect. It's just your body's way of screaming without sound. And now perhaps he's asking for just one thing, caution. Be careful with the words you repeat about yourself. Be careful with the places where you insist on staying, even though you know they hurt. Be careful how you treat yourself when you remember that conversation that still hurts. Lightness doesn't come all at once. It builds in layers, with pauses, with little no's, with a little more self-love each day. And you can start now. You don't need to wait for anyone else to do it for you. You don't need to wait for recognition, apologies, or external validation. You are able to create a safe space in there, just yours, where what you feel is welcome, where your story doesn't need to be hidden, where even pain is allowed to rest. And if at some point it all seems too new, too strong, too lonely, remember that this voice is still here, not to solve everything, but to walk with you, even if in silence. So, breathe with me very slowly. Feel the air coming in, going out, as if, in this simple movement, you were saying to yourself, I'm here, I'm still here. Because sometimes all a pain needs is to be able to exist without needing to justify yourself, without having to be explained, without being diminished. Let this pain breathe. It just wants to be heard. She doesn't want a stage, don't want drama. She just wants you to finally look at her with the same affection you once had for so many people. You have been a shelter for others for so long. And today, just for a moment, let this voice here be yours. A space where your silence is respected, where your sensitivity is not shameful, where you can drop your shoulders, undo the armor, and just be you. With everything you feel, with everything you still can't name, with everything you tried to forget but still lives inside. You felt it. And that is worthy of care. It doesn't matter who didn't understand. It doesn't matter who laughed, who downplayed it, who moved on as if nothing had happened. What matters now is that you can embrace yourself. Come back here when that memory hits you again, when the chest weighs in silence, when no one else seems willing to listen to what was trapped inside. This voice is still here, not to give answers, but to be a shelter when everything screams too much inside. Let this message reach those who also hide small injuries, in those who pretend to be strong, just to continue. There are more hearts out there that need to breathe the same relief that now touches yours. And if your chest asks, come back as many times as you need. This page does not close. This silence here listens to you with the same presence that he so often offered to others. This space becomes stronger with you around. There are new words coming, and some of them may touch parts of you that no one else has reached yet. Turn on notifications and subscribe to the channel. That voice keeps whispering to those who feel too much and hide everything inside. Getting this far is a sign of courage. Write in the comments, "I felt it." 3 words that say a lot without needing to be explained. And maybe someone reading this will find an echo in what you felt too. In the next video, we'll talk about that feeling of being surrounded and yet feeling alone. There's a hug waiting for you there. I'll meet you in the next breath.